About the prophet Zephaniah, we don't know anything, so he's not mentioned elsewhere in the Bible. But here's the interesting starting line, because often the prophet introduces himself, or the book introduces the prophet only. This is the son of, and then you have the father's name, so it's just one generation given. But in the case of Zephaniah, we have 4 generations actually given. So he does give his father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-grandfather. And this 4th grandfather, so to speak, is Hezekiah. And Hezekiah, as we know, was the famous king of Israel in the time of Isaiah.
The book of Zephaniah is one of the shorter prophetic books, short even within the context of the minor prophets, the book of the 12. Just 3 chapters.
And he belongs to the group of Nahum, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah. So the 3 are all more or less contemporaries.
Zephaniah, as a historical individual, seems to have lived and been active in the later part of the 7th century BCE. The heading of the book, chapter 1, verse 1, suggests that.
And that means they are, in a way, contemporaries of Jeremiah, and they have seen the last centuries of the Judean kingdom with Jerusalem as its capital.
The main thrust of the first chapter of the book is a very dramatic one. Zephaniah portrays the approaching day of the Lord, as he calls it, the day of judgment.
Judgment will come, the day of the Lord is near, and this will be a day of wrath and a day of retribution, and it will not be a lucky day. So the book of Zephaniah has 3 chapters, and especially the beginning is talking about this judgment day.
We've heard about the day of the Lord previously in the minor prophets. It's in fact Amos who seems to have been the first to speak about the day of the Lord, Amos chapter 5. But clearly Amos is speaking there about an idea with which the people are familiar. And in very general terms, the day of the Lord seemed to be a specific time to which people were looking forward when they believed that God would finally destroy all their enemies, would finally usher in a kind of wonderful time of well-being, of prosperity for the people of Israel. What Amos had done was to turn that on its head and to say that the day of the Lord that you are looking forward to so eagerly will be a day of judgment, when God will punish you for your wrongdoing. And Zephaniah takes up that idea. It becomes the central and dramatic theme of the first chapter of the book. Zephaniah says to the kingdom of Judah, more than a century after the time of Amos, that the day of the Lord is approaching fast. It's going to be a day, he says, of clouds, of gloom, of darkness, of anguish, of distress.
One verse from this announcement of judgment became then quite famous because it made it into the traditional texts for the Mass Requiem. And so Mozart and Verdi and others made wonderful music to it. Dies irae, dies ille, this day, the day of judgment. The great day of the Lord is near, near and hastening fast. The sound of the day of the Lord is bitter. The warrior cries aloud there. That day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of ruin and devastation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of trumpet blast and battle cry and so on. And this sound of the trumpet you have in this dies irae, dies ille.
As we read on into the second chapter of the book, we hear also of how it's other nations as well, foreign nations, the nations surrounding Israel, which are also going to experience this judgment, this punishment for their ethical and social wrongdoing at the hands of God, culminating at the end of chapter 2 with the announcement that the empire of Assyria itself and the capital city of Nineveh is about to be destroyed.
This is not just Zephaniah, it's other prophets as well have this announcement of judgment. But we have to understand that the function of this announcement of judgment was to avoid judgment. So the message of judgment is a message of repentance, and the invitation of the people to return to the Lord, to give up their idols, their wrong worship, their wrong alliances with foreign rulers, and to trust and to rely solely on God.
Yes, God, being the God of justice, will punish people's wrongdoing, and the people of Judah and Jerusalem cannot trade upon their relationship with God. Judgment must come. Judgment will come upon their wrongdoing.